welcome to another edition of SportsZone. We are kicking it off with the important stuff like we usually do. Studio 90, I'm joined by Aaron, and probably the biggest news, at least that we've covered on Studio 90 this year, broke this Friday morning. Arsene Wenger out as Arsenal manager after 22 years. People have been calling for it for a long time. I don't think a lot of people thought it would happen, and especially right now. And Aaron, what do you sort of make of the decision to get rid of Arsene Wenger at this point in time?
Well, pretty much for all the Arsenal fans that I've talked to, it's very mixed. I think it was obvious that it was time. Some people may have said it was time a few years ago, but definitely when you look at the results, Arsenal in sixth place, I think there definitely a change needed to be made. And I think, even though a lot of people were surprised that Arsene Wenger ended up stepping down, I still think that, people were just seen it coming just because Arsenal were in sixth place. And, these mixed feelings come from the fact that Arsene Wenger, 22 years as manager of Arsenal, unprecedented when you look at modern times. And his first 10 years doing such a great job transforming that club into the, huge club that we see today. But obviously the last few years have been tough. For me, it's also very mixed. I mean, you look at the past few years, it's been tough, but you can't look past what he's done for Arsenal Football Club. So, while, it was shocking to see him step down after 22 years, I think, after Arsenal being in sixth place this year and a lot of the performances this year, I think that, it was time for him to go.
Yeah, certainly. You mentioned the legacy, sort of the stadium, Emirates Stadium, sort of he built that, financed it pretty much by himself, revolutionized the club. It's going to be interesting, sort of an end of an era, certainly, a longest tenured manager in the Premier League, managed over the most games. It's going to be interesting not seeing him on the sideline, but sort of taking a look at maybe who's going to replace Arsene Wenger. There's a couple of names that have been thrown around, some maybe having more validity than others, going from, Brendan Rodgers, Alan Pardew, Carlo Ancelotti, Massimo Allegri, all these names being sort of thrown around. And the Arsenal job, it's a big job, but it's also going to be a really tough job. Aaron, who do you think sort of should be the top couple candidates to replace Arsene Wenger?
Well, you definitely mentioned some names. I think it's important to, think about realistic candidates, because I've seen names like, Allegri and Simeone thrown out there that just, definitely guys that aren't going to leave their club to go manage Arsenal. So definitely when you're Arsenal, you got to look at more realistic candidates. I think a few names, Patrick Vieira, Arsenal legend, currently managing at NYCFC Major League Soccer. He's done a great job with them, and even though he's young and pretty inexperienced, I think that he's definitely a favorite for the job. And you also look at Mikel Arteta, who's a former Arsenal player, assistant right now at Man City, and he's gotten a lot of good reviews as far as being a good manager. But as far as experience, guys, I think Luis Enrique, who managed Barcelona, who's currently out of a job right now, is definitely a guy that they're going to look at. So there are a ton of names that have been thrown out there. Claudio Ranieri, Thomas Tuchel, although he might go and manage PSG. So definitely a ton of names being thrown out there, and it's very interesting to see, which candidates Arsenal are going to narrow it down to, and in the end, who they end up choosing.
Yeah, it's a sort of a coveted position, and who Edin Gazidis and sort of Stan Kroenke and that ownership group decide to appoint will sort of send a big message about the future of Arsenal. They can go young, they can sort of go old with an established guy. I think based on sort of some of the messages they've been sending, they may go for a younger guy like a Patrick Vieira, like a Mikel Arteta, and sort of have somebody potentially build another legacy. But it will be interesting to see. And Wenger, certainly not done yet, has a couple of games left in the season in the Premier League and still something to play for, that he's never won a European Cup. I think we'll transition to that Europa League. A big semifinal matchup between Atletico Madrid and Arsenal. Olympique Lyon and Salzburg are playing in that sort of other semifinal. And this sort of, the Europa League obviously always a second fiddle sort of to the Champions League. But when you have a tie like Atletico Madrid and Arsenal, it sort of brings a little bit of eyeballs to the Europa League. Do you think this will be, or how do you sort of see this first tie going?
Well, sorry to say for Arsenal fans and Arsene Wenger, I would love for Arsene Wenger to go out with the Europa League. I think that would be great for him. But you look at the quality of this Atletico Madrid team, and it's tough to see a way that Arsenal are going to win this tie. When you've got guys like Antoine Griezmann up top and, an Arsenal defense that has looked shaky at best this season, I really can't see a way for Arsenal to win this, especially the fact that Arsenal haven't even gotten a point away from home in 2018 in the Premier League, let alone going to Madrid. So I definitely think Atletico Madrid are the favorites in this tie and definitely the favorites to win the tournament.
Certainly, and that ironclad defense will be tough to break down, and when the Arsenal defense is sort of weakened goals left and right, I don't think they'll be able to score enough goals to keep up with that one, but it's certainly setting up for an exciting week of soccer because you have the other two Champions League semifinals being played. We talked about them last time, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, and then Roma and Liverpool. Interesting ties there. Also, some domestic cups have sort of been resolved. We have the final of the FA Cup has been set. Manchester United defeated Tottenham 2-1 yesterday, and Chelsea defeated Southampton 2-0 today to sort of set up a big sort of blue blood type final for the second year in a row. Chelsea reaching the final, Manchester United reaching it for the second time in the past 3 years. So sort of both of these clubs maybe looking to salvage something from their season. Do you see this, any side sort of having an advantage in that final? Well,
you mentioned both teams have sort of had a disappointing season, but I definitely think Manchester United are the favorites going in just because, they are higher in the table and because, Chelsea have had a very interesting season. Antonio Conte, it looks like he's going to leave at the end of the season. There's a lot of, questions surrounding that club, so I definitely think that's going to affect them going to the final. I think Manchester United, they won the League Cup last year. The previous year they won the FA Cup. I definitely think they've been good in domestic cups over the past few years, and they played very well versus Spurs. So I definitely see Manchester United as the favorite, but this tie can go either way just because both teams, they're really going to want to salvage the season with an FA Cup because it's the only trophy that they can win. So I think both teams are going to come into this with their best lineups, resting up, looking ahead. But I think if you had to pick, Manchester United would be the favorites.
I think I would tend to agree with you based on sort of form of both teams going into the final. And with a lot of the domestic leagues sort of wrapped up, it'll be these European Cups and domestic cups that'll have a lot of the intrigue over the next couple weeks. I think that'll do it for us for this segment of Studio 90, but stick around for more SportsZone after this.
Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. Your favorite baseball commentator has returned to the studio. I'm here. We got a 4-person panel today because we love numbers when it comes to baseball. So this is getting to third base. I'm Dan, of course. Hopefully you remember me. I've got Aviva, David, and Kristen with me today. Baseball season in full swing. We are about 3 weeks into the season, so there's a lot going on. So we'll dive right in because we got a lot to cover. David, we'll open with you. Big milestone happening late last night. Our first no-hitter of the 2018 season coming in Oakland from a surprising source.
Sean Manaea, he's always been good. If you have him on fantasy, you're definitely happy with the strikeout numbers. But no-hitting a powerful Red Sox lineup is definitely surprising. Sean Manaea came over to Oakland in the Ben Zobrist trade back in 2015, I want to say, whenever the Royals won the World Series. 2014 maybe. Always been a highly touted prospect. It's great to see him break out like this. After a week after Bartolo Colon nearly no-hits the Astros, it's really great to see that no-hitter happen. And say what you want about Benintendi, he was way off the baseline and was rightfully called out.
Well, yeah, a bit surprising, as you said, to see the Red Sox being no-hit. This serves as a nice transition. The Red Sox, coming into yesterday, were the absolute hottest team in baseball, still have the best record in baseball, 17 wins in their first 20 games, which is ridiculous. So Aviva, we'll pivot to you now. Just break this down. How are the Red Sox this good right now, and what's going right for them?
Their lineup and their pitching is doing really well. Mookie Betts is batting .366. JD Martinez is batting .324. Those two people right there, they're doing really well. On the pitching side, they have Chris Sale, and David Price, who have a low 1 ERA, which is really good. And they're starting out really good, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, JD Martinez, of course, the big offseason acquisition for the Red Sox after he lit Arizona on fire in the second half of last year after coming over in a trade from the Tigers. And I think for the Red Sox, it's very important. You talk about Mookie Betts. They've hit 5 Grand Slams this year already. Didn't hit any all of last year. But you mentioned David Price. And David Price was a big move for the Red Sox when they got him. He was really so-so for the first couple years he was in Boston. Moved to the bullpen at one point. Still can't pitch well in the playoffs. He's one of those Kershaw types. But if he figures it out and becomes the ace that he was in Tampa, that's a huge boost for the Red Sox, who have a phenomenal then 1-2 with Chris, as you said, with Chris Sale at the top of that rotation. Talking about starting pitching, there's a pitcher in Queens who is no longer a starting pitcher. So Kristen, our resident, well, one of a couple resident Mets experts on this panel, Matt Harvey getting bumped to the bullpen. Jason Vargas due to return from injury next week. He's not happy about it, allegedly. What are we looking like? What does he have to do to get back in the rotation? Is this where he's going to be now? What's the deal with Matt Harvey?
Yeah, so obviously we've seen Matt Harvey struggle so far this season. He had a 6 ERA throughout the starts that he's made thus far. His last start came against the Braves, and they really roughed him up. So Mickey Callaway made the decision to send him to the bullpen, which I think is a good move to send him there as opposed to sending him to the minor leagues. I think the bullpen will give him a chance to make some starts still in the majors, not make some starts, will come in relief in the major leagues still and face major league hitters, which I think he needs, and I think he really just needs that time in the bullpen to perfect his pitches and just get better. So I think it's good that he's going to be out there, and hopefully that he can build upon those starts, and we'll have to see how Vargas does coming off of his injury. So if he plays well, I think we're going to see Matt Harvey in the bullpen a little bit more than anyone was expecting. But depending on how Vargas does, we'll have to see when Matt Harvey's able to make his start on the mound again.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, I think, a surprise. I mean, coming out of spring, everyone was talking like, will Matz go to the bullpen? Maybe Wheeler will head to the bullpen. They already moved Lugo and Gesellman out there, and they've been really thriving in a relief role.
Absolutely.
So certainly you hope that maybe something similar from happens. Dave Island talked about, the pitching coach for the Mets, talked about moving starters to the bullpen. He mentioned Wade Davis as a guy who's now one of the best closers in baseball, who was a starter and had really not much success, and then moved to the bullpen and now is an all-star. And they also talk about like not having to throw as many innings, maybe you gain a couple extra miles an hour on your fastball, which frankly what Matt Harvey probably needs more than anything else. I mean, this was a guy who used to throw 98, 99, sitting 92, 93, and hasn't done what he needed to adjust to that, I think is what people think might be the problem. That he has lost the stuff from arm surgery and just hasn't figured out the pitching rather than the throwing yet. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, you certainly would expect, again, you want to knock on wood, but given what we know about Matz and Wheeler, I feel like the odds that Matt Harvey never starts again with the Mets are slim. Because you got to figure he's the next man up should one of them go down or be ineffective or whatever. So I do think he'll start again at some point this year. But I agree. I think for confidence alone, like he needs to show that he can get people out. And he talked about it. He's like, yeah, the last 3 innings of I started really well. It's like, well, great, but coming out of the bullpen, you get 1 inning, so that doesn't help anybody. Anyway, moving along from that Matt Harvey ramble, I'm sure we could talk about that for 20 minutes in and of itself. We'll move on. We're getting enough into the season now that we can start seeing that some of the starts from some of these teams like might be legitimate rather than they had a good first week. Or on the converse, a bad first week, right? There's some teams that, all right, like you're looking like, all right, maybe they weren't as good as we thought they were, maybe they're better than we thought they were. So we'll head down the table. I'll start with Aviva. A surprise for you, good or bad, at the start of this season?
So my surprise is that Chicago Cubs, they're 9-9, 500 right now. Earlier, before the season started, we talked about how the Cubs were ranked in the top 5. ESPN ranked them in the top 5 for this season, and they're 500 right now. Anthony Rizzo's on the DL. Chris Bryant isn't doing that well, and they're in a division, the NL Central, that has the St. Louis Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are also doing really well, which is a surprise. But who knows? The Chicago Cubs are not doing as well as people thought they were going to do.
Yeah, another team in the NL Central, I'm going out of line, and I will come back to myself. This isn't even my surprise. Milwaukee Brewers currently sitting in second place. I'm not sure it's a surprise. I personally really liked the offseason they had. As I haven't been on the show, nobody knows that. But I thought getting Kane and Yelich were big moves for them. I think they had a good offseason. So the Central might be more competitive than a lot of people thought this year, especially if the Cubs are going to be iffy. David, surprise.
So my surprise, which I don't think will stay up for the rest of the season, will be the Atlanta Braves. They're playing well. Dansby Swanson seemingly found his swing after a year of toiling in the majors. Really happy to see him get back on track, hopefully for good this time. And they have my favorite prospect in Ronald Acuna waiting in the minors. While he's not hitting too well, I'm sure they're going to be more patient with him since he's only just 20 years old. Really can't wait to see him come up. It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't think they will stay this good. But that will move me to my now disappointing surprise, which is my hometown Baltimore Orioles. I knew they were going to be bad, but man, this has been soul-crushing. I don't know why Mike Wright's in the majors. I made some memes about it in my fantasy baseball chat. It really is devastating me as a fan, and hopefully Manny Machado gets us a good prospect haul towards the summer deadline.
Wow, you're already shipping Machado out the door, huh?
What else can you do right now? We're 6-15 or something. I mean, there's not much hope right now.
All right, yeah. I mean, I don't know much. I mean, I feel like the bugaboo for Baltimore, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the issue for them in recent years has been the pitching.
Oh, it's always been the pitching.
Yeah, I
but
mean, they don't. Tevin Gausman is not exactly Chris Sale, is he?
I mean, he's never supposed to be, but when Mike Wright has an 8 ERA and is coming in and immediately loading up the bases and give grand slams, I don't know why he's even in the majors. I'd rather just ship him off to Japan right now. I mean, it's just, I don't know why he's on the major league roster when we have people in AAA who'd probably be better.
All right, Kristen.
So I'm going to agree with David. One of my surprises this year so far was how hot the Braves have been. I feel like the Braves have always been kind of a thorn in the side to the Mets and the Nationals in the NL East. But I don't think anyone really thought that they would be posing as much of a threat as they have been so far. The Nationals have kind of been slipping off, and the Braves have really been having a hot start, so I think that is a surprise. And then also I wanted to hit another surprise. Curtis Granderson has had a surprising start, I think, for a lot of people. He's hitting .319. He's been really good, both off the bench and as a starter for the Blue Jays in the outfield when he does get the chance to start. And I think it was a mistake that the Mets overlooked signing him, and I don't think people even thought that he was going to get signed at all and that he might retire, but I'm really glad that he didn't. I'm really glad the Blue Jays gave him that opportunity because he really is hitting well in Toronto.
And the Blue Jays are off to a surprising start. They're actually in second place in the AL East right now, behind those red-hot Red Sox and ahead of the Yankees. So I think that speaks a lot to that. And two of you touched on the Braves. Arguably two of the biggest player surprises right now are Ryan Flaherty and Preston Tucker, who both are hitting, I think, over 350 for Atlanta, and I don't think anyone expected that. I mean, Ryan Flaherty's a guy who's bounced around the league his entire career, and Preston Tucker is someone nobody's heard of until right now. And they're both hitting really well, in addition to Dansby Swanson, and of course Freddie Freeman is a perennial all-star, probably the best player on the Braves roster. I mean, even Kurt Suzuki, I mean, that's a guy, another one, like a veteran catcher, sort of bounced around, been a backup, sharing time guy, and he's hitting well for Atlanta also. So things seem to be coming up pretty good in Atlanta for the Braves these days, which is nice for them. And my roommate, who's from Atlanta, so I'm sure he's happy. For me, my surprise, the Los Angeles Angels. I think it felt like every year we were like, this is the year that Mike Trout is finally going to carry them to playoffs and he'll do it all by himself. And it hasn't happened. And then at that point, and then I think it was like last year we all started being like, all right, like maybe it just won't happen. We all thought the Trout and Pujols was going to be enough, and it isn't. They haven't put it together. They don't have any of the other pieces. Maybe we should stop relying on the Angels. And I know I, on this show, more than once have projected them to win the AL West in recent years. And I mean, again, I wasn't here, but I did not pick them to win the AL West this season. I can tell you that. But all of a sudden, they are half a game behind the Astros for first place in the AL West. And, of course, Mike Trout is Mike Trout, and Albert Pujols is healthy again, and they think he's going to be Albert Pujols. But Shohei Ohtani looks to be legitimate. I mean, he had a brutal spring, and everyone said he wasn't ready to be in the major leagues. And then all he does is come out, throw 7 perfect innings in his second major league start. He's hitting home runs in 3 straight games. We saw triples, he's all of a sudden hitting. Got hit his last time out, but had a blister. So, whatever. View that as what you will. And the Angels look like they could. I mean, Garrett Richards is healthy again, and he's probably their ace when he's on. Justin Upton was a good get for them, so they've got a pretty solid outfield with Upton, Trout, and Cole Calhoun. So maybe this is finally the year the Angels compete for a playoff spot. I mean, wild card. Maybe it's just a wild card because we know how good the Astros can be. But I think the Angels are my surprise at least these first couple weeks. And they're starting to give me hope, make me believe in them again, which is dangerous. I know. Anyway, just some other quick wrap-up little news things. Yankees top prospect Gleyber Torres will make his major league debut today. He's batting 8th and playing second base. We have our first managerial firing of the year. Brian Price out as manager of the Reds. They're 3-17. They have the worst record in baseball. So it sort of is understandable, but I could not name more than one player on the Reds. Other than Joey Votto, I don't know if I've got anything else. Anyone have a
Billy
Fred?
Hamilton.
Oh, there you go. All right.
Eugenio Suarez.
Scott Schebler. Is
Scott
he still? Yeah.
Schebler. Adam Duvall.
Graciela Iglesias.
Yeah, that's another
We're just
one.
naming players from the Reds now.
Homer Bailey.
Is this a managerial problem, or are the Reds just horrible? Like, what is?
I mean, they've not been good for 4 years. I mean, he wasn't given much to work with, but he just wasn't getting it done.
Yeah. And again, it's a waste of Joey Votto, who's a perennial MVP candidate. So that's a shame to see.
Yes, it is.
Also, one of the probably the most underrated players in baseball. Because he plays for the Reds and nobody can pay the price. Anyway, that is all the time we have for this edition of Getting to Third Base. Thank you for joining us. We have more Sports Zone coming up right after this.
And welcome back to Sports Zone. This is our NBA segment, Throwing It Up. I'm joined here by Justin. Playoffs in full swing now. We'll start off in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, the biggest story right now is LeBron James, those Cleveland Cavaliers, down 2-1 to the Indiana Pacers. Justin, is there a chance LeBron James is going to lose in the first round?
There's a chance. I mean, Indiana's a really scrappy team. They play hard-nosed defense. They're never out of a game. Victor Oladipo is a stud. He's an all-star. He's proven to be one of the better two guards in the league. And Cleveland just refuses to play defense and run a system. So they play disjointed. They rely on LeBron. And when you see LeBron kind of teeter off in the second half, they struggle mightily. So, yeah, there's a chance. I don't think they will, because I think LeBron could put together three more LeBron-esque games. But tonight's a must-win. They're on must-win watch right.
Yeah, obviously you can't count out LeBron James right now. For me, it's not looking good for those Cleveland Cavaliers, not shooting the ball well. And like you said, Indiana, a very scrappy team, really getting them out of the rhythm. And obviously Victor Oladipo playing really well. So it remains to be seen whether LeBron James will get out of the first round. But we'll stick in the Eastern Conference and talk about a team that maybe before this season people didn't even see in the playoffs, but now they might be even a favorite in the Eastern Conference. That's the Philadelphia 76ers. They went up 3-1 yesterday versus the Miami Heat. So Justin, with Cleveland struggling, are the Philadelphia 76ers the favorites in their Eastern Conference?
I still think that's Toronto at the moment, just because they have more experience and they have a deeper team in terms of their bench just goes 10 deep. But Philly's really good. Philly, that Miami-Philly series is reminiscent of the Miami-Knicks series from the 90s. It's really scrappy. Miami's trying to punk them. And you know what? They didn't back down. Ben Simmons didn't back down. Had a triple-double the other day. Joel Embiid is clearly the best player on that team in that series. And he's showing it, dominating on the defensive end. And then the additions of Ilyasova and Bellinelli are providing that much-needed space for Philly. And you know what? With Cleveland looking the way it is, they honestly could make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I wouldn't be surprised. They're just that good right now.
An absolutely crazy thought to think, last year, the Philadelphia 76ers, where they were a chance to make it to the NBA Finals. And like you mentioned, Philly have done a great job. Everyone talks about Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, but they've done a great job of surrounding Ben Simmons with shooters, one of the reasons why they're doing so well. Other matchups in the Eastern Conference, Boston are up 2-1 on Milwaukee, and Toronto are up 2-1 on Washington, but I think sort of Toronto and Boston are the favorites in those series, so we'll shift over to the Western Conference. Yesterday, the Utah Jazz going up 2-1 on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma City Thunder with that three-headed monster of Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and Carmelo Anthony not being able to get it done against the rookie Donovan Mitchell. So Justin, just what is your impression of the series right now, and do you think Donovan Mitchell can lead them to the next round?
Well, this series is exactly what I thought it would be. Two defensive-minded teams going at it, scrappy series. Probably still going to go 6 or 7. But yeah, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony play fine for 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden they go to hero ball, and it clearly hasn't worked for them. Russell Westbrook especially tries to take over. His lack of shooting also plays a pivotal role, because he can't just give the ball up to Paul George, because you then lay off of Russell Westbrook because he's just not a good three-point shooter. But on the flip side, Ricky Rubio and Donovan Mitchell are clearly one of the better backcourts in the NBA. They play scrappy defense. Rubio's finally showing that he could finish at a decent rate, not the 30 below clip he used to do when he was in Minnesota. And Donovan Mitchell's just playing above his years. And testament to him, he's playing shooting guard, 6'3", undersized. Put 13 on Oklahoma City in the fourth quarter. just impressive. He reminds me of a young Dwayne Wade with a 3-point stroke. And, Utah is just incredibly coached by Quinn Snyder. Joe Ingles, who's the dude who shows up to the YMCA, drops 50 on you. One of my favorite players in the NBA. He's balling out. Rudy Gobert, they just got a deep bench. I could easily see them winning the series in 7, but I think it's still going to be a real battle between these two teams. And Oklahoma City needs to win because this all rides on Paul George's free agency. So if they don't win the first round, he's probably not going to be there in the summer.
Definitely, like you mentioned, Quinn Snyder's done an excellent job with this Utah Jazz team. Donovan Mitchell playing beyond his years, and Ricky Rubio with a triple-double yesterday. So, they're definitely going to be tough for Oklahoma City Thunder. Russell Westbrook struggling. He was 5 for 17 yesterday. So that will definitely be an interesting series. But we'll also talk about a series that's already wrapped up. The Pelicans sweeping the Portland Trailblazers. The Pelicans, a 6 seed, sweeping the Portland Trailblazers, the 3rd seed. So, Justin, I'll ask you 2 questions. One, how do you see the Pelicans faring against the Warriors, assuming they do beat the Spurs? And 2, where do the Blazers go from here after being swept?
Well, let's start with your second question. I don't know where the Blazers go from here, and you got questions about the coach. He's lost, 10 straight playoff games. Maybe the CJ McCollum, Dame, backcourt isn't sustainable because it leaves the rest of your roster in a predicament. Plus, they spent a lot of money 2 summers ago when the cap was spiked, so you got Evan Turner on $70 million. You got Ed Davis on $30 million, Mo Harkless. So there's not that much wriggle room. I mean, it's a similar situation with Washington. You got the star-studded backcourt, but everybody else is far and away non-compatible with the team. I don't know. It's going to be tough. If you're going to trade anybody, it's probably going to be C.J. McCollum. I probably see them just firing the coach and trying to roll ahead and make minor moves. But they have every roster spot locked up, so they can't sign anybody. I don't know. It's tough for them, but really surprising they got swept. But New Orleans, on the flip side, played a terrific series. Rajon Rondo, playoff Rondo, is definitely a real thing. I forgot where he was during the season. But no, he's been playing great. He's shooting the 3 ball a lot better than what he has. He still struggles on the free throw line. That concerns me moving into the next series. If Curry's not, back or, not close to healthy, there's a chance. There's a chance. The Warriors are still going to be favored because they're probably going to beat San Antonio today or Tuesday. But no, there's a chance. Anthony Davis is probably going to be the best player in that series. Drew Holiday is showing that he is more of a scorer. And when he only has to focus on scoring and defense, he's great at it. And they're just playing with a lot of confidence. So I could see that series at least going 6. I wouldn't pick the Pelicans just because how good Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson are. But I think it's going to be a lot closer than people would think it would.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Drew Holiday, who had an unbelievable series. Alvin Gentry coming out and saying he's the best 2-way player in the NBA. Maybe not true, but I think it shows
there's a healthy dude who's sitting in New York who's been playing for the Spurs, so I think that is. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, that was definitely shocking to see the Pelicans sweep the Trailblazers, and I think we expect the Warriors and then also the Rockets to come out of the West. So, definitely interesting in the West moving forward. But I think we'll end with that.
Oh, can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Pop, everybody's praying for you.
Absolutely.
We understand you guys are taking your time, but we're all praying for you. Doubt you see this, but still, just wanted to put that out there.
Definitely condolences to Greg Popovich and his family. Always tough, but Greg Popovich, been a staple in this league. Not just basketball, but talking about social issues. I think definitely, Greg Popovich is a great guy, and I think we're all praying for him.
Yeah, great coach, better man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll end on that. That's all we have for today, and more SportsZone after this.
Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. This is going to be going for 2, which we are bringing back today. And the reason we're bringing it back is because the NFL Draft starts this Thursday, and we've not really talked about it. So we're gonna go do a little bit, not so much a mock, but we're gonna talk about the first several picks and the quarterback frenzy that's going on right now surrounding those top picks. So we'll start with the perennial number 1 pick, it seems. The Cleveland Browns, they have 2 picks in the top 5. They have pick number 1, and they have pick number 4, which I believe they got in a trade.
Yes, from Houston, yeah.
That was Houston, yeah. So, what is Cleveland going to do at number 1, and what should Cleveland do at number 1, and how are they going to mess this up? Because it's Cleveland, and they probably will.
What they're going to do is draft quarterback number 3,453. Granted, who is it? I don't know. My guess, I would say Sam Darnold. If I'm Cleveland, I'm picking Sam Darnold. Just because if he was the number 1 pick, if he came out last year, why not just pick him again? Because clearly, Josh Allen from Wyoming only completed 53% of his passes. Everybody thinks the dude from UCLA is a jerk, and then nobody knows what Baker Mayfield is. So clearly, the one with the least amount of questions and probably the right choice for Cleveland is Sam Darnold. Will they pick him? Probably not. They'll probably pick some dude from like Rochester and then be like, oh no, he's the savior. And then that jersey of all the infamous names will just increase. But I don't know.
Well,
It's Cleveland, man.
so Cleveland, they've been active this offseason. They traded for Tyrod Taylor. They traded for Jarvis Landry. They're like trying to bring pieces in.
They're a sneaky 6-1 team this year.
So, well, 6 wins is progress in Cleveland. You gotta certainly have to say that. But what gets them is probably like the 5th pick next year, though, which doesn't say much. Coming out of right, everyone was like, all right, like Darnold and Rosen are your top 2 quarterback options. But now all of a sudden, people are like, well, Josh Allen, like people legitimately think Josh Allen could go number 1 to Cleveland, which I'm with you. I think is a mistake. Like, just take Darnold. He's the best available. Like, this isn't hard.
Yeah, my one thing about Josh Allen is like everybody sees the big arm and the talent, and I get that and I understand that. And Hugh Jackson might be able to develop him, and they have the Steelers' former coordinator. But 2 things I want to bring up who Josh Allen reminds me of: Jay Locker, because of completion percentage, and then that dude who just played quarterback for a year in Miami, Jay Cutler. And we all know how Jay Cutler turned out, and Jay Locker. I'm just saying, like,
Jay Cutler is such an enigma because the pure like the arm. You said the arm strength is there. He just never looks like he cares enough about the game.
And sometimes arm strength is bad because you
Yeah.
feel like Jay Cutler and throw picks because you want to jam it into the window.
Well, I think that Jamarcus Russell is the shining example of that. The big arm, but no accuracy on it at all.
Yeah, but nonetheless, Cleveland will probably draft the wrong guy.
All right, so Cleveland. Let's say I have Cleveland taking quarterback at number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have the New York Giants sitting at number 2. Word that I've seen from some people who follow the Giants is they like Darnold if he's available. If Darnold is not available, they are looking at Saquon Barkley.
Okay.
So, or if there's a team that's going to trade out of the top 5, it would probably be the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Look, who would trade the number 2 pick? Which of those 3 options is the best option?
Well, they only want Sam Darnold, and let's assume Cleveland takes him to trade out. Because why would you draft a running back when you have no offensive line? So in Cleveland they need more picks. Granted, they just stole Nate Solder from away from the Patriots, so I guess that helps. But he's more of an above-average left tackle than anything, and you're paying him to be Joe Thomas. Is he Joe Thomas? No, I don't think anybody ever will be. But like I see the appeal in Saquon. It's just if you don't have someone to block for him, I don't see how it could help. I mean, follow the Cowboys, drop the offensive line, build it off from there, and then the stuff will come. I still think you should draft a quarterback regardless. I mean, you're not going to get a top 2 pick with the bridge quarterback readily available and beloved by the fans, as you will now. I mean, they have the perfect situation where you could draft the quarterback of the future, play Eli. Nobody really in demand for Eli to be benched, at least for this year, regardless of what happens. And then he gets a year of development. So, granted, will they do that? It doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like that. It looks like it's Sam Darnold bust, and then Saquon's the second best choice. But that's just what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point about the offensive line. That's really been the issue with the Giants' offense in the last couple seasons, is that it's Swiss cheese. I mean, you can run through it. And especially when you look at that division, I mean, you said the Cowboys, right? The Cowboys have a great offensive line, and that's a big reason why Ezekiel Elliott is so successful there. And, you said they signed Nate Solder, but Nate Solder, but he's still probably like the 4th best left tackle in that division alone. So it's steps in the right direction, but you make a point about like they could get a lot of picks and sign like good offensive linemen just by moving back in the first round, and they can ask for a lot for the number 2 overall pick. We saw what Philly gave up for Carson Wentz, for example.
Yeah, we saw what the Jets gave up for the number 3 pick.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
That's a perfect segue. So now we move into the number 3 pick with the Jets. Definitely quarterback shopping. Everyone, I think, knows that. The most recent rumors that they're closely tied to Baker Mayfield. Personally, that concerns me. I'm torn about how I feel about Baker Mayfield. I'm not sure he's the second best quarterback in the draft. I'm not sure he's the answer. But they've got Josh McCown. They've got Teddy Bridgewater. They've been loading up in free agency because they've got a ton of cap space. Who's the best quarterback option for the? Is Mayfield the right choice? Should they go Rosen? Those are probably the 2 guys that are going to be on the board for him.
I mean, I like Teddy Bridgewater personally. I mean, he was a top first-round pick, played really good, just had a freak accident. Give him, a year to develop or get his legs under him. You don't need to draft a quarterback, but they will. For them, I could see them taking Josh Allen. I mean, they make the most sense because they will buy him the most time because they have 2 proven starters. Say if Josh McCown struggles, you can bring in Teddy. I feel like those 2 can get you through a season, regardless of record. And then Josh Allen, that's for me. That's a perfect situation for him to develop because he definitely won't be rushed into the mix. But Baker Mayfield doesn't scare me as much as he scares you. I think the off the field stuff isn't as bad as Johnny Manziel's. He does not have the same abuse issues of Manziel. I think he's also bigger. He's also another problem that Manziel had, because that's the comparison, is like Baker Mayfield is stronger than Manziel, so he could take more punishment than I think Manziel could at the time. Plus, I think like if any quarterback's made for New York, it's him. So, and you have to be made for New York.
You do make an interesting point about Teddy Bridgewater. He's really sort of the wild card in this Jets quarterback scenario, is everyone is sort of looking at him as like, we have no idea what we're going to get, and let's just see what we can make for Teddy Bridgewater. And everyone's sort of assuming that, like, yeah, they'll go with McCown, and then they'll draft a quarterback, and Bridgewater will just be the backup, and then next year it'll be whoever they drafted, they'll be up. But you're right. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater was a great quarterback before he got hurt, and the Vikings looked like they were in good shape for a bit with Teddy. So if he gets his legs back under him, he's been out a long time. He missed 2 full seasons basically.
No, yeah, understandably.
But if he gets, you make a point that if he gets his legs back under him, we know what Teddy Bridgewater can be. And he theoretically could be the guy. And if he is the guy, they just got to steal. They signed him for 1 year, $5 million, and that could be a big deal for them. So that's an interesting point. I understand. I see where you're coming from on Allen as well, as someone who could sit behind. The thing is with Allen is I feel like, again, the big arm, I feel like people just have shades of Hackenberg and Petty again, which is the last 2 quarterbacks just drafted who have not panned out. And they're sort of the same kind of lower completion percentage, big arm strength guys out of a school, out of not, Petty from Baylor and Hackenberg Penn State. And now you're just Petty was a 3rd round pick, Hackenberg was a 2nd round pick, and now you're taking the same guy in the 1st round, but is he actually better than any of those other guys?
That's why it's a crapshoot.
It is. I mean, the draft usually is, but people love for this analysis and stuff anyway.
No, I got you.
All right, so we're back at Cleveland at number 4 again. So if Saquon Barkley's on the board at number 4,
Bradley Chubb.
or you go Chubb over Barkley at that point.
Yeah, because I get Zeke, I get Fournette, but you can get Sonny Michel in the 2nd round. You can get Chubb's cousin in the 2nd round, and you sign the dude from the 49ers. And you get a couple good running backs anyway. Why not get another stud defensive end to go with Myles Garrett, who's already a stud defensive end? And then you got a pass rush, and then you could use the rest of the stuff to figure out your secondary. Or, draft left tackle because you just lost probably the best one of all time to retirement. So that's how I would view it. I would go D-end or left tackle. Protect Tyrod. I mean, he's mobile enough for you to have a placeholder for a season. But I would go defensive. Just build that up because I think Hugh Jackson's trying to go win now in terms of we're trying to fight for the playoffs. And I think if you get Bradley Chubb, you're going to be better off suited for that than if you get Saquon.
Yeah, I did forget they signed Carlos Hyde. That's a good point in the running back situation. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You said Joe Thomas. I mean, you got to replace. That's a big hole to fill.
Huge.
It never hurts to have more pass rushers either. So, 2 valid options. Number 5, the Denver Broncos. They signed Case Keenum. So maybe more secure at quarterback than they were 6 months ago. But now they're sitting with the 5th pick. What are they looking to do? I mean, they just cut C.J. Anderson, so they might need some running back help.
Could use a running back. Could draft a quarterback. This is my personal preference, just because I love the kid. Is that Minka Fitzpatrick? You lost Aqib Talib. I love Minka Fitzpatrick. He plays all 4 positions in the secondary. He's young. He could end up replacing Chris Harris. I don't know what Case Keenum's going to get you. Denver's offense, no matter who you plug in there, is not going to be as elite as it was when Peyton Manning was there. So we'll see. But I think you can continue building the defense, which will give you a better chance of having a winning season, making the playoffs, and investing in a running back.
Well, there we have it. We've laid out for you, or Justin has at least laid out for you, his ideal selection for the top 5 picks in the NFL
I
draft.
also want the Patriots to draft Lamar Jackson. That's a different story.
They could use a backup quarterback. Or who knows? Brady might not come back, so we don't know. Anyway, so there's your top 5 picks of the NFL draft right there. You saw it here first. Justin called it. And so that'll be the first round's Thursday. It'll continue Friday and Saturday. So we'll see. We'll see how close you are. I think you backed up your answers quite well.
Thank you.
You made me a believer. So that is all for this edition of Going for 2. We'll have more Sports Zone after this.
Welcome back to SportsZone. This is your favorite segment, Thumbs, where we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly in the world of sports and the world at large. I'm going to start it off today. I'm going to give a thumbs middle to Matt Harvey. He's really has not done well, and now he's going to the bullpen, like we said in the MLB segment. So we'll see what happens with him. I'm going to give a thumbs up to Meredith because I asked her what I should say for my thumbs, and she was like, well, you have 2 thumbs right here. So that was a little joke. I really don't have that many thumbs. Thumbs down that this is Justin's last episode. He's not going to be here next week, which is really sad. And then also thumbs down to most of SportsZone is seniors, and next week is our last episode, which is really even more sad. I really don't have that many thumbs, so here's Aaron.
Alrighty. I'll start off with the biggest news of the week. I guess I'll say thumbs middle to Arsene Wenger retiring, stepping down as Arsenal manager. I'm pretty sure he got forced out by the club, but we'll just say he stepped down. It's going to be weird to see Arsenal without Arsene Wenger as their manager. Ever since I've been watching soccer, pretty much Arsene Wenger's always been there, always been in the fold. So it'll be interesting to see how Arsenal move forward. But it's very interesting to look back at Arsene Wenger's career at Arsenal because you've got the first 10 years where he pretty much transformed the club to what it is today, which is a pretty big worldwide club. But then you've got the past few years where it's just been all bad for them. So I mean, it's mixed, and I know Arsenal fans feel mixed about it, but it's for me, it will just be weird without Arsene Wenger managing Arsenal. It feels like I'm in a different universe that Arsene Wenger's like leaving Arsenal. It's very weird. I don't know how I'm gonna respond to that, but we'll see how Arsenal go moving forward. I'll throw a thumbs up to the NBA playoffs because they've been very, very entertaining so far. I've watched way too much basketball for my own good when I should be studying, but it's very, very entertaining this year, and I think this is the first time in the past few years where the finals really aren't set, because I think the past 2 or 3 years we've known it's going to be Cleveland, Golden State, but I think this year, with Cleveland not doing so well, with Steph Curry injured, it's kind of up in the air who's going to be in the finals, and it's sort of fun to have some new teams in the fold, except the 76ers because they're the worst. So I really hope they don't make it to the NBA Finals, because if the Sixers make it to the NBA Finals before the Knicks do, I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm going to do. But, yeah, I think that's all I got. I'll throw it over to Kristen.
All right, I'm going to start off with a thumbs middle to Enes Kanter. He's apparently in Turkey right now, and I'm kind of worried about his safety. He's been doing a lot of good work for justice in Turkey. So thumbs up to him for that, but thumbs middle because I'm a little bit scared about what he's doing in Turkey, and I really hope he doesn't get arrested or anything like that. I'll give a thumbs up to Jacob deGrom. He's been pitching stellar this entire season, and I'm going to throw a thumbs down to the Mets bullpen that they haven't really been able to secure him any wins recently that he deserves. It's been really kind of sad to see him pitch so well, and then the Mets come out and they don't get the victory for him. I'll give a thumbs up that Dan's here for his first episode of semester. It was great to have you back on the baseball segment today. And then I'm going to give a thumbs middle to Justin. I just found out like 2 seconds ago that this is Justin's last episode with us for the semester. It's been great having you on the show. You're awesome. You always bring the laughs to us with your Stephen A. impression. So we love you and thank you for being on our show. And thumbs up because you're also going to be staying at AU to do a grad program. So congratulations about that. That's very exciting. And that's all the thumbs that I have today. So I'll throw it over to Justin.
Okay, where to start? So thumbs up to NBA players like Aaron was talking about. Really good, really fun, really good series like Miami, Philly, Utah, Oklahoma City. It's all been fun, distracting me. That's why I'm behind a lot of my group projects and studying and stuff, and probably why I didn't do so well in my quizzes last week. That's a conversation for a different day. Thumbs, I guess, middle for the Yankees. I don't watch them a lot, but I check the scores. They're always like really good or really bad. There's like no in between with that team. So yeah, they could do a lot better. Thumbs up to the Knicks. Actually looks like they're trying to find a coach, and they're actually conducting it like a normal franchise or organization by like having multiple interviews and not just handing the job to one man who's probably not qualified for the position. So good on them for that. Enes Kanter being in Turkey, didn't know he was allowed in Turkey. I want to know how he got into Turkey. I thought he like talked stuff about the dictator. I figured he would have been shot on sight in Turkey, but I guess the Turkish people are not a lot nicer than I thought they were. Thumbs down because apparently this is my last day with everybody here, so it's been great. Appreciate everybody having me, letting me come and spew this nonsense out of my mouth and not knowing what I'm going to say half the time. I appreciate that. Vince for dragging me along and letting me come a couple of years ago. I appreciate that. Been a real one. 6 o'clock, Vince. 6 o'clock. Yeah, and then the thing I'm most excited for this week, besides my brother's confirmation, but that's not important, is
Yes, it is.
it's not that important. Is Avengers Infinity War comes out on Friday. I'm excited. I'm seeing it on Saturday. I was gonna get the tickets for my brother for his birthday, but now I'm making him take me. So the nerd in me's been waiting for that for a while. I'm excited. Yeah, it's gonna be good. I'm gonna be sad when Captain America dies, but I got Black Panther now, so yeah. But yeah, thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. And now I'm gonna pass it back over to Dan, who's back again.
I am indeed back again. Yeah, I'll start up with thumbs up. In general, it's nice to be back on SportsZone. I've had a lot of scheduling conflicts this year, so it's good to be back here. Even though I did probably add approximately 10 minutes to the runtime of the show, because how much I like to ramble. So sorry, but no, I'm not that sorry about it. That's just who I am, and you knew what you were signing up for when you invited me back, so that's just gonna happen. Thumbs up to Sean Manaea on just a no-hitter yesterday. I know we covered this in the baseball segment. He was the opening day starter for the A's, but he's not exactly your like well-known pitcher across the country. He's not Chris Sale, he's not Noah Syndergaard, he's not Max Scherzer. So good on him for throwing a no-hitter. I feel like these are always the best ones, the ones that come from like the pitcher that you never expected it to come from. Your Phillip Umbers, your Dallas Braidens, your Sean Manaeas. So that's pretty cool. I will give Justin a thumbs down. I know it's his last episode. I should be nice. And I'll get there. But I want to point out, I need to bring this up, and I told him I was going to do this, so I'm not really catching him off guard. But behind the scenes today, Justin made not one, but two very, very incredulous statements behind the scenes. Number one, Justin believes wholeheartedly that if he was a Major League Baseball player, he were to join the Major Leagues today, he would achieve 3,000 hits.
And 500 home runs.
Oh, and 500 home runs by the end of his career. So that's number one. Number two, Justin also believes that if he could quarterback the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs. Yeah. I didn't say he. I'm just.
And I would bring Jacksonville.
And Jacksonville. He also said that. Blake. I understand that Blake Bortles is not the greatest quarterback to ever walk the earth, but I had to bring that to the public light that those things were said on off the air today.
And I mean them.
And yes, he means them. Thumbs up. I'll give also Justin a thumbs up. It is his last episode. You've been great to have you here. Obviously, I was still here when you joined. Plus bonus thumb for Avengers Infinity War. Well done. The nerd in me is also very excited.
Super excited.
I feel you. Captain America's totally gonna die. I'm with you on that.
I'm gonna cry.
It's gonna be horrifically sad, but it is definitely going to happen. So yeah, that's a thing. So I echo Justin's sentiments on that. I'll go thumbs up for the NFL draft. It's a little weird. I kind of lost track of time and didn't realize that the draft was as close as it is. Just because I've seen so many mocks, and then I was like, yeah, but that's so far down the road, and it was like, oh, it's a week away. So that'll be fun. I'm interested to see how that plays out. I feel like I have a lot of thumbs to catch up on because I haven't been here. Thumbs down. I'm sure my Jets will screw this up somehow. They have the number 3 pick. They're going to take a quarterback. I just hope they take the right one. That's all I want in life. I want a quarterback. I'll give a thumbs up. Again, I'm catching up on stuff. Thumbs up to the AU Women's basketball team for winning the Patriot League this year. I wasn't around here as much as I would have liked. I wasn't around AU Athletics as much as I would have liked either. But I do have to give them the shout out where it is due. They dominated this entire season, and so they deserve a thumbs up for that. Trying to think what else is going on. Thumbs up to Mookie Betts for his 4 home run game the other day. I think he 4 home runs consecutive at bats, which is pretty cool. So good for him. That's a thumbs up. I don't know. I think that is all I've got. I'm glad to be back here at SportsZone, even if there's only one more episode left this season, and then before I leave forever. So yeah, that's all. I got Vince now. Vince is coming up next. This is weird. I'm used to closing this show.
All right. So I'll start off. We'll go thumbs down to the Pirates. They've begun their descent back under 500 into the ground. They're going to just keep plummeting in the standings. They've lost 3 straight to the Phillies, which is just unfortunate. They might get swept by the Phillies, which would bring them to 12-10 and close to that 500 mark. So it's been nice being above ground while it lasted, but this is what I expected from the Pirates, to be bad. So that's unfortunate. We'll go thumbs down because the Penguins couldn't close out the Flyers on Friday night. They got another chance in Philadelphia tonight to move on to the next round. Hopefully they can do that, because if it goes 7 and they blow a 3-1 lead, that would be really unfortunate. But that's I don't really care about hockey too much, so I wouldn't be too bothered by that. We'll go thumbs down to Arsene Wenger leaving. That's pretty sad. I didn't think I would. I knew it was, he would leave at some point, but it didn't really grasp that would be a reality. It was a harsh way to wake up on Friday morning. This is a man who helped me fall in love with the game of soccer, fall in love with the club. He is Arsenal Football Club. He's been a living embodiment of that. Completely revolutionized the English game, revolutionized the whole game. I feel like all the big money spending that we're seeing, especially in the Premier League, is pretty much a direct result of what he was able to do in the late 90s and early 2000s with some of his clubs. Hopefully the club can send him out with the European Cup, the one thing that has sort of eluded his illustrious resume. And hopefully he stays in the game because he's a brilliant guy, and I just, he's been the scapegoat for Arsenal fans for far too long, who really, fairly or unfairly, I don't know. I've always, respected him as a manager and, loved the energy and the passion and everything that he brought to the game. So it's really unfortunate to see him step away, and I really don't know what Arsenal would be without him. So that will be interesting. But they were able to win their first game on sort of this farewell tour, but we'll throw thumbs down because Mohamed El-Neni looked like he suffered a really nasty injury. They had to like air cast his leg and then stretcher him off the field, which is really unfortunate because he's been playing really well, and the World Cup is like less than a month and a half away, and Egypt would be in the World Cup for the first time in like 30 years, and he was a really integral part of why they were there. And so if he were to miss out on that, that would be really unfortunate because he's Mohamed El-Neni and he's really awesome. I think that will do it for me. I will throw, I think, a thumbs down. Sad that this is Justin's last episode. He's brought the analysis, brought the humor, brought all that sort of stuff. Even the analysis outside of the SportsZone hours. In Nebraska, in Cassell, wherever it is, talking it up.
Oh, I forgot to say we're going to the game.
And thumbs up because Justin's friend was able to hook us up with tickets for Game 4 tonight. Wizards Raptors. We're pretty excited about that. I think we'll wrap it up there. So for Justin, for Aaron, for Dan, who was back, that was always awesome having Dan back, bringing the baseball analysis and the NFL draft talk. Definitely something to diversify the SportsZone palette a little bit there. For Kristen, Aviva, David, who couldn't be here for thumbs, for Meredith helping us with all the long laundry list of technical problems that we ran into. For the penultimate episode of SportsZone for this semester, thank you for watching.
All right, just throw stuff at me. I'll spear out the BS.
Yep.
We're going for 18,000 minutes.
Wait, let me think. Okay, I think I know. I think I know what we're gonna.
How long is an episode of Scandal? Like 41 minutes for doing that?
Yeah.
Are you good?
Yeah, we're ready.
Always good.
Yep.
Which
Okay.
camera am I looking into? The one with the mountains on it?
Yeah, it's distracting.
Yeah, no.
That doesn't even make sense. Oh, that's a teleprompter. So where's the camera?
What?
Where's the actual lens of the camera?
It's like there. It's in there.
I don't believe you.
It works.